Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Late Friday night, Billy Napier, the Florida Gators, land what I think is a very intriguing commitment coming out of the transfer portal as former Southern Miss defensive back Michael Caraway Jr. committing to the Florida Gators. Now, is this going to be a name that makes national media headlines? No, absolutely not. Am I going to get up here and say that I think this is a plug and play starter for Florida going into 2025? No, I am not. But this is a piece that Florida was clearly looking to add in the transfer portal going into 2025. There are two things that intrigue me about Michael Caraway Jr. Number one, the position versatility. This is a guy that's played boundary cornerback. This is a guy that's played nickel. This is a guy that's played safety all throughout his time at Southern Miss. Again, very similar to how we talked about Triquez Bridges. And I think, secondly, look, there are some intriguing physical traits with this kid. Now, has he been a great football player for Southern Miss over the last couple of years? No, he has not. And we'll get into some of his numbers. But what you do like, and we talk about this all the time, when you have a choice to add a player, you want to bet on some size and speed. And Michael Caraway Jr. has that. I mean, he's 6'2", 200 pounds. He is long in the arms, and he clocked a 22.5 mile per hour time or mile per hour speed, you might say, on the GPS at Southern Miss. And you see that when you turn on a little Southern Miss. Now, I didn't watch a ton of this kid, but it doesn't take you very long to know, hey, he can cook. I mean, he can burn. And so he's got some length. He's got some speed. Maybe not the best football player yet, but this is a guy that you can add to this defensive backfield, and he can provide depth at multitude of different positions. Want to get into a little bit more of Michael Caraway, talk about where he might fit into this Florida Gator secondary. Before we get into it, as always, to the Florida fans, just want to say thank you to you guys. And it's been really fun talking this program in the offseason. Really, it's been really fun talking this team for the last couple of months. You know, what they did in 2024, how they finished the 2025 recruiting class, what they've done in the portal. Appreciate you guys more than you all know. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into Michael Caraway. Now, again, I don't want to get up here and just sell you on nothing. I don't think this is an all SEC caliber guy. I do think he has some high upside that I'm interested in. I think at the end of the day, what Billy Napier and this Florida Gators staff were thinking is, hey, we like, and we can pull up the depth chart because I think this conversation has to do with Florida in this depth, right? You look at the defensive backfield, and we feel dang good about Sharif Denson at nickel. We feel really good about Devin Moore and Dejon Johnson at cornerback. Feel really good about Jordan Castell and Bryce Thornton at safety. When you get into the depth, that's probably the question marks that you have. And it's not flashy to talk about, but you can use the transfer portal to add quality depth too. You know, you don't have to use the transfer portal to get bona fide plug and play starters. You can build some depth in the portal as well. And I think with Florida and how much they like what they have coming back in 2025, the transfer portal was largely going to be about adding depth to some rooms. And I think in the secondary, that's where you wanted to add it. And Michael Caraway allows you to add one football player to your team that can play a multitude of different positions. And again, what you're hoping if you're a Florida fan is kind of similar to Triquez Bridges. You know, maybe he starts as a safety, but then moves to the boundary cornerback spot because he has experience playing in both. Look, Triquez Bridges, none of us thought that he was going to be a plug and play guy for Florida in 2024. He didn't originally start for Florida, but he had to play because of some injuries and play pretty dang good football. And so, one, I kind of trust Will Harris and what he's seeing from Michael Caraway. And two, we just saw a similar transfer portal addition 12 months ago work out very well. You know, why can't that be Michael Caraway too? And you start looking at the depth and say, hey, with Jameer Grimsley going under the knife in this offseason, getting offseason surgery, I believe on an ACL, that was a guy that we probably were going to be relying on at the cornerback spot. Because after that, it's Kermani McLean, who we all know is very talented, but is not necessarily a guy that you want to put all your eggs in one basket with. And then Ben Hanks Jr., who I love. I think he's going to be a stud for Florida, but he's going to be a true freshman. And so this allows you to add a guy that, you know, he could come in and compete and provide some much needed experience and then some much needed depth. And he's a guy that also could play a little nickel. He also could play safety because you look at the safety room and say, hey, we feel good about Jordan Castell and Bryce Thornton, feel good about Gregory Smith and what he can go going into year two. I particularly really like Drake Stubbs. but it's kind of when you get into the depth, it's a little bit young. And it's kind of a young secondary in general, too. Like, I know Bryce Stewart and Jordan Castell have played a lot, but they're only going to go into year 3. You look at a guy like Ben Hanks and Hill Stubbs, they're true freshmen. You wanted to add some experience, you wanted to add some depth, and you wanted to add some versatility. Michael Caraway, to me, checks all those boxes while providing a guy that runs 22 and a half miles per hour on the GPS and is 6'2", 200 pounds with a little bit of physical traits upside. To me, this makes a lot of sense for Florida. And I get that maybe some Florida fans are frustrated with the lack of impact players that Florida added. Look, the last couple of weeks has been predicated on let's go take care of our guys. We love what we have coming back in 2025. And we're turning a quarterback that might be one of the best quarterbacks in the country in 2025. We're returning 4 out of our 5 starting offensive linemen, bunch of difference makers in the wide receiver room, a ton of young talent on the defensive side of the football. I don't think Florida had a ton of room to go add starting caliber guys in the transfer portal. I think the transfer portal was largely one, let's make sure our best players are staying on our team in 2025, and let's go add a little bit of depth around it. That's what Michael Caraway is. We'll see. I'm fascinated to see where he ends up playing for Florida. That'll be a story that we monitor in spring practice. We'll get out of here on that Friday night. Hopefully, you guys all enjoy the weekend. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.